Somebody's coming to us from the beach. That lucky somebody is spending her Saturday in style. Hi, Renee. Somebody's coming to us from the beach. That lucky somebody is spending her Saturday in style. Hi, Renee. Why can I hear myself again, Carrie?
I just muted the live stream, so
okay,
we're good.
Okay, great.
Okay, in about 1 minute, we will get started.
Andrea brought a friend.
Jill, this is my best friend from Camii that I was telling you about. She teaches middle school there.
Hi, Jill. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. How exciting. Thanks for joining us for Saturday.
Thanks for having me.
It's Saturday school in the best possible way.
Jill, can you send me a private chat, just a comment so I can open it off my other screen? Thank you. We will get started. I would love to just welcome all of you for coming and joining us on this Saturday. It's so awesome to see your beautiful faces this morning. This is our first ever statewide virtual conference that the Idaho Coaching Network has put on. And gosh, it just feels like we've been working on it for years and it's so exciting. So what you will need for our time together today is, if you're not speaking, turn your microphone on mute. We are recording the session, so you guys will have access to all of the sessions on demand, which is great. Jill has asked to rename your picture to your grade level that you have taught or are teaching, and your first and last name, and maybe just a place to create. You might want some note paper, or have the note catcher open. I will put in the chat window here in just a little bit, the conference note catcher, and just come with an open heart and mind and ready to learn and grow. I'm Carrie J.O., and I am one of the Region 4 coaches. I live in Twin Falls, and I've been a coaching network coach for 4 years now, and this is just an exciting time. And Jill Diamond, you can see her face there waving at you. She's also a Region 2 coach. Yes, I always forget there's 2 up there in the far north. So that's awesome. So glad to have you guys here. The essential question for today is, what sparks your passion and purpose as an educator? And I think this is just something good to think about and reflect on. So we're going to start, we always love to start our workshops or our meetings with celebrations. So if you would open your chat window and just introduce yourself, maybe your name, where you're from, or where you teach, and just a mini celebration. It could be either personal or professional. That just kind of helps set the tone for our whole time together when we can celebrate with each other. So if you would just do that, that would be awesome. And I am trying to get my chat window open here, and it's behind. There we go. Awesome. Oh my gosh, so exciting when they learn to ride a bike, Jess. That's exciting. Yeah. That's exciting. Oh, yep. Seems like once we hit April, when we start, Julie, winding down to those last few days, it's exciting. Leslie Pine, you're here. Oh, there you are. I see you now. Awesome. Leslie's one of my teachers. That's great. And Annie McMahon, she used to be an ICN coach. Baseball started. Veronica, way to celebrate health improvements. That's on my list as well. Yeah. Spring and gardening. Oh, 11 in-person days left of school, Renee. Yes, I'm glad you're not counting the weekends. Those don't count. Yeah. Oh, Denise got a dog walk in already this morning. I thought about that, but I promised my dog I'd take him out later, even if it's raining. Yeah, awesome. Thank you. You guys can just keep sharing if you want. That's awesome. You can read through. So what you need for today, you'll need your conference schedule that was emailed to you from my register. Let's see, what's it called? registermyconference.com. So that's where it came from. And that will give you all of the links, the unique links for each of the sessions that you signed up for. The passcode for every session is ICN 2021. So we tried to make that simple. Each session has its own unique Zoom link, but the passcode is all the same. And any materials that you need, there'll be a section on there right below the Zoom link in your registration that has maybe slides or a note catcher if the presenter has a note catcher. So I will also add the conference note catcher because not all of the sessions have them. So it'd be a great way to take notes. This is the schedule for the day. There's a break between every session. So that's awesome. There's 70 minutes each, but note the times for Pacific time and Mountain time. So if you're up north or down south here, pay attention to that. That's easy enough. I totally missed a conference this year that I signed up for because it was East Coast time and I was going by my time and I totally missed it. I was really disappointed. So I learned a lesson. These are our incredible Idaho Coaching Network coaches. There are 13 of us across the state, from way up in the skinny panhandle down to Boise to as far east as Victor. And they are just amazing, incredible people. So you will probably see some of their faces today in the conferences because we are all hosting and some of us are even presenting. So these are your friendly faces for the day amongst all the other ones. So in the coaching network, this is our why statement. This is why we do what we do. The Idaho Coaching Network builds relationships with and among teachers to raise collective efficacy, increase teacher expertise and effectiveness, and build leadership skills so that all Idaho teachers and students achieve excellence in the classroom and in life. So that's why we do what we do. And we are so excited to share this with you today. So I will unshare my screen so then Jill and Clayton can get started.
Hello, welcome again. I'm very excited to see you, and I'm going to just go through some logistics specific to this, but Carrie's already talked about a lot of them. So we're recording this session. You probably noticed that it is live on YouTube, but nobody's watching it over there, most likely. Although if you're having major technical problems, you might try, but then you wouldn't be able to interact, which would not be very fun. It's in order to have a double backup of the recording. Workshops materials that you need for this were downloaded pretty late last night. And so we'll just make sure that we give them to you in the chat so that they're available, and we'll mention it when we do so that you can just click them. They will force a copy in most cases unless they're interactive slides. Reminder, if you just showed up, please rename yourself by finding the 3 dots, hovering over your face, finding the 3 dots, clicking on that, finding rename, and then typing in your grade level and then your first and last name so that we can know who you are and get you in the right breakout rooms with the people that you want to be talking about when we talk about adventure sentences. You'll need a place to create. That could be what Carrie just offered you with the handout that is for all of the sessions, or it could be your very favorite writer's notebook. That's up to you. And you want to have a learner stance, which if you're here on a Saturday to learn with us, I guarantee you brought that with you. All right. I would like to take a moment to introduce Clayton Worden. He is going to introduce himself a little bit, but I've had the joy of working with him over the course of this year. He's in our cohort 8 program, which normally when we have a conference like this, it's our returning teachers that get to present that have gone through the program for 2 years. But he's super brave and bold and has some things to share with you. And so even though he's not a returning teacher yet, he just was ready to do this thing. So I can't wait for you to learn from him, for me to learn from you, for us to learn from you. It's going to be wonderful.
Hi there. So I'm just going to really quick go over a couple things about myself. Educational background. I graduated from Lewis Clark State College. I have a degree in elementary education, a minor in reading, which is actually called literacy now. I'm certified in the state of Idaho to teach all subjects K-8 and literacy up to 12th grade. I'm teaching English and reading right now, but I've had a wide range of literacy instruction experiences. Everything from teaching ESL, I started a middle school drama club, writing and directing plays. For that, developing a broadcasting program where students did a daily show for the school. We did cartoons and songs, and I'm currently teaching a science fiction elective. And I grew up with a love for stories, imagination, and adventure. I can tell you as much about movies and comic books as I can about literature. I love to get my students engaged and excited about anything, really. I've been trying to work on making all of them interested in something. So I've been reading everything from like Louis L'Amour to horror stories. I mean, anything that I can based on their interests. And then I refuse to be boring, and I refuse to let students be bored. So that's my introduction. Your essential questions for this session: how do we make language instruction adventurous? And how can we make language instruction stick? So just consider those while we're talking. These are learning targets. Educators will consider their approach for teaching language, participate as learners in one model of embedded grammar, read about the theory behind this practice, practice developing a micro lesson in a similar style, and then transfer and share your thinking about next steps. So let's start off with thinking about what you're currently doing in your classroom. How are you currently supporting students in language, grammar, and mechanics instruction in your classroom? And if you want to write down some answers to that, just take a second to write down some ideas, or just consider these questions. You can do either one. And if anybody wants to volunteer to speak, you can do that too. How does your language instruction fit into your day or your week? And how much time do you spend on it? What is working well in your context? How do you know? And what fierce wonderings do you still have about the art and science of teaching language standards? Give you just a second to think about that. Does anybody have anything that they want to say right now about any of those, or just anything in general with language instruction in your classroom?
Hi. So
Hey.
I do what I call like a DGP or daily grammar practice. Does anybody else do something similar? So basically it's our bell work every day, and like the kids come in and it's the same sentence all week long, but like Monday you identify parts of speech. Tuesday is subjects and predicates, but it's a heavy emphasis on the fact that it's just practice. Like I remind them every single day, we're just practicing. It's not daily grammar perfect, it's daily grammar practice. And we do it just for a tiny bit every single day. And I notice, like, I know they're learning things because I'm learning things, and I can feel it getting easier for all of us. So I really like it.
Yeah, that's a good feeling when you're learning along with them. I do that with this a lot too. I mean, because we're exploring together when we do this, and so I learn things at the same time, and that does really, I think, work well. Who else? Anybody else want to share? Can be like answer to any of those questions or just in general.
Hi, we do in third grade, I have them do a daily writing every morning. So they go for about 5 minutes and just get to write. I usually give them some kind of prompt to answer, or some days we do just a brain dump so they can write whatever they want. So, we do that for about 5 minutes and just kind of get them started for the day. And then also we've gone through and done some narrative stories and opinion writing. So it's fun to see how they've progressed throughout the year, and especially this year.
Yeah. Have you been in the classroom the whole time, or?
We've been in person most of the year. We've had 2 different times where we've shut down for 2 weeks, but it's been pretty nice to be able to see the kids all year.
Yeah, I'm excited about having them full time, hopefully next year, the whole way. But all right, let's get into this sentence if you're ready. So this sentence comes from this book that's on the right here. It's called, it's the Kingdom of Engines series, and this book is called Sword Fight. It's the first book in the series. I like this book because I like the content of it. I mean, it's written well, but it's also like, it's an interesting idea to me. It's basically a cross between like medieval knights and post-apocalyptic like vehicles. So the knights actually in this, instead of having horses and doing jousting and stuff like that, they actually have these cars that they battle with. And so it's pretty interesting. So this sentence, I actually did this sentence with my kids too. So we're gonna just try this one out. So the first thing that you would do with your students is you have to pick a really good sentence. So I just explained that I really like this book, and I suggest picking something that you really like, because you have to get excited about this to get them excited about it. So it's good to start with something that you're really interested in to begin with. And then I picked this sentence out that I liked the way that that the author put this. And so the first thing that you would do is put this sentence up on the whiteboard. And then for the first minute or two, you just have the students copy down this sentence in a notebook. I usually use a composition book. And so you just give them some time to copy it down, and then you go on from there. So I'm going to let you do that. If you have paper today, that would be really good, because this is just better on paper than it is digitally. So if you could just copy this sentence down on a piece of paper, then I'll give you like a minute or two to do that, and then we'll move on. Okay, it looks like everybody's finished writing. So that's what I always do with my kids too. I will watch and see who's done writing with done moving their pencil. So the next step then, after they all write down the sentence, is you just give them a minute or two to notice whatever they notice about this sentence. And I usually, I give them, especially when we start off, I give them some guidelines on some direction on what they should be looking for, just in general. So things like content, so what the sentence is about. I usually tell them what content means. Things like the word choice, the sentence structure, the grammar, the parts of speech, all that type of stuff. What do you notice about the sentence? So I'm going to have you just spend like a minute or two writing down whatever you notice, whatever stands out to you that you might want to bring up. Hey, was that enough time for you guys, or does anybody need a little more time? All right, so let's just have you share. So this is what you do next with the kids. Just ask them to share. And I usually, tell them one at a time, raise your hand, I'll call on you, all that kind of stuff that you have to tell younger kids. But what did you notice? What stood out to you? Who wants to go first? Let's actually, you know what, we talked about this. Let's do a, can we do a hand raise, or I'm trying to fix my screen so I can see everybody.
I'll go ahead and start. I agree with Tammy, who commented in the chat. Love that, those high energy words. Like, I mean, I just honed in on snarled and wrestled and forcing, and it just sounds like fighting, tough words. Love those.
Right. Yeah. And so, so if it was a like a seventh grader who brought that up, then the first thing that you do that I do actually is I mark it up, and so I have them do the same thing. So I would just circle the words if they brought that up. Oh, there's a lot of these really great words that sound. Let's see, not that one. Right there. So, but then after they bring that up, then I kind of would direct that into a talk about what kinds of words are those, you know? So what makes those words sound like what you said, right? You said that, remind me what you said that they sounded like. Did you say tough?
Oh, they were just tough, like fighting words. I mean,
okay.
Snarl, I envision this dog just snarling and baring his teeth, and wrestled, it's like a fight and somebody's going to win, and yeah.
Right. So we would talk about verbs, you know, what type of words are these? These are verbs. They're, you know, what else could you say about them? They're action verbs. They're maybe aggressive action verbs, right? What else?
I had something, same thing that you guys are saying. That was the first thing I noticed, was totally this great word choice. And that's something I really talk a lot with my students about. Another thing is just how the word choice can create imagery. And that's a big deal that I've been talking to my 8th graders about this year, is just how do we create imagery in our writing? And action or active words often can create that visual for kids. They can start to visualize what's happening. So I think this sentence really does that.
Yeah, so could you see yourself maybe taking something like this then and having them go off from this on, like, maybe doing some writing with their own action verbs like that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great, thank you. What else? What else did we notice about this sentence besides for just the word choice?
I noticed, I honed in on the lady portion. It's almost like an oxymoron because you have such a formal name. Sorry, I have a cold. You have such a formal name, and then very vibrant word choice in there, like almost like not violent, but really firm, really strong. And so it would make me really want to ponder the plot a little bit more. I don't know anything about this series, and so it'd make me really want to ponder the plot a little bit and see where we could take the kiddos with it.
Right. So so you brought up that this word lady. Let me actually. So it's her name is Lady Maggie Sutton. Why is it lady? You know, what does lady usually refer to? And then, you know, I like how you contrasted, well, she's called lady, but, you know, it's talking about she's snarling. Do ladies usually snarl? Do they drive, you know, war cars? And so, you know, students will bring that up, and then you can have that discussion, you know, what is actually going on here, and make some inferences. And that's kind of how I handled this when they bring it up. They say, why is her name Lady? And I ask them, well, why do you think it's, you know, what is the possibility, you know, why might her name be Lady? And then we talk about where do you usually hear that at, you know? And so you might bring up, you know, where actually you guys, where do you usually hear that term at? if you hear lady something.
Typically royalty, I would think. Something formal.
Right, yeah. Yeah, so she's probably some kind of royalty. Do we use that term now as much as in the past? Do you think this is a current sentence, or is it like set in the past? Okay, what else? Is there anything else that stands out about this?
On the mechanical side, students might notice the use of commas.
Yeah, they do actually. And so I would circle those. And then we talk about that. Okay, yeah, there's a couple commas there. Why? You know, what's the reason that the author has 2 commas in the middle? Maybe talk about, you know, actually when I use this, you know, the kids will be like, they actually think it's like maybe the sentence is too long, you know, and so you can discuss, well, is it, you know, is this is it grammatically correct? Is it okay for a sentence to be this long? What's the reason we have commas in the middle? And talk about how it breaks up the sentence so that you pause there so that it makes more sense. Anything else?
I kind of saw the how those action verbs are sort of juxtaposed with those nouns that are not really associated. Snarled and helmet, wrestled and steering wheel were kind of odd to me.
Right. Yeah. So I actually did have this talk with a kid. You know, why is somebody wrestling the steering wheel? Do you usually wrestle a steering wheel when you drive? What situation might you be in where you had to wrestle a steering wheel? And I actually had a kid go, well, you know, when I'm going up a trail, like, and it's really bumpy with my 4-wheeler, sometimes I have to wrestle the steering wheel. And I'm like, oh, okay. So wrestling the steering wheel happens when your car is out of control or when your car is like going through a rough spot. And so they'll make that connection, and they actually are kind of, it's kind of an insight into what is going on in this part of the story. So it's a good inference. What else? Anything else here?
I also appreciate that it's Lady Maggie, but it's also a war car, you know, so that makes it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so sometimes they'll bring up war also. Why is she driving a war car? What's a war car? And they'll connect like helmet to war. Does she have a helmet because she's a soldier? Stuff like that. Okay, does anybody else have anything that they want to bring up about this sentence? All right, let's move on to the next step then. So I actually kind of did this with you as we were going, but the next thing that I usually do when I'm doing this with students then is whatever they don't bring up, I bring up. Like I have a certain set of things that I want them to bring up. You know, the things that they're learning, like parts of speech. We'll do subject and predicate. And that kind of thing. And I usually actually start with subject and predicate if they don't bring that up. So once their time is done noticing like what you just did and discussing, then I'll say, okay, let's look at what's the subject here. And what's the predicate? So what is the subject? Who's this sentence about? Who wants to volunteer? So the subject is Lady Maggie Sutton, right? And then the predicate starts with snarled. So I would just like draw a line there and talk about that. You can put a line, oops. Sorry, my slideshow isn't cooperating right now. There we go. So you put a line there and you talk about subject and predicate. I usually will draw up, you know, noun and just do the parts of speech. Looks better on the whiteboard, obviously, but I'll put things like that so that they can copy it down in their notebook and write out the parts of speech. And then after we finish with that, noticing everything, talking about it, then the next step is I actually have them rewrite or actually write their own version. So write a sentence in this format, but with their own content. And so look at the sentence and write a sentence just like that, but with your own content. So use the structure, but not the author's words. Maybe a few of their words, but not, you know, not all of them. And so this is an example. So I made my own sentence based on this. How about it? I'm gonna have you guys try that. Write your own version of this sentence with your own content. And then we can, some of us can share if you would like.
Clayton, in the chat window, Tammy would like to know if you use the word predicate or use the word verb.
Probably both. I mean, you know, I'll say, let's pick out the subject and predicate, but we always have that talk where we discuss, well, what is the predicate and how do you know where the predicate is? And we discuss that it starts with the verb generally, and then is the rest. There's some sentences obviously that are more difficult to pick out the subject and predicate. I mean, I just put one up the other day where it was like, it probably had a couple subjects and more than one predicate, and it was like not in a really traditional type order. And so that's good and also sometimes challenging. So I'll just take another minute or two here to write, and then I'll ask if you want to share, you can share. All right, does anybody want to share theirs out? You want to read what you wrote?
I'll share mine. Can you hear
Great.
me? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Mistress Veronica the Great smirked beneath her jaded helmet and stepped on the gas, allowing herself a primal space back on the road while leaving a trail of piled up cars behind her.
Nice. I like that. I like how you actually made it a little longer. You added to the end of it too, right?
Yeah.
And kids will do that. They'll go off from it. I've had kids like kind of start with something and then they end up with a whole story because they get so into it. Or the other direction is sometimes people make it shorter. Sometimes they decide this would be better if it was more concise, and they make it shorter a little bit. Who else wants to share?
We've got one in the chat that needs to be shared out loud.
Okay.
We're going to let them do that in their own voices.
Okay.
A couple,
Okay,
in fact.
I said, Miss Andrea Hale sneezed into her hat and pounded the throttle, jerking her electric scooter to the center lane.
Nice. War scooters. I like it. Okay, anyone else? Got some good writers here. Okay, so after you have them imitate the author's structure, then the next thing that I do is have them then give them permission to play around with it and to change things around and you know, so some of you already kind of did that by adding some stuff in, but the 7th graders don't necessarily do that. They will copy it kind of more exactly how it is, like mostly. And then you give them permission to change it up, and then you get other stuff. You get like more like some of what you shared, where it's longer or it's shorter, or they add words in or change some the order around. And so this is an example of a different sentence that I used with my students the other day, and I had them imitate this sentence. So I just wanted you to see how you can pick out certain grammar things that you want to cover and stuff like that, you know, like, so this would be maybe teaching about semicolons and how they work, right? So we did a sentence that had this part in it, and then they had to imitate this part of the sentence. And I got some really good, the students did some really good sentences with this. And what I liked about this one was that they actually had to think about basically the other side of something. And so like they're all kind of like dealing with a lot of stuff right now. And so they had to think about it from one side and then the other. And so I like when they needed, when they were stuck and they needed to get started, I kind of encouraged them, well, think about something that you're struggling with right now, and then think about the other side of it. And so they wrote a sentence like this, doing that.
Clayton, in
Yeah.
the chat window, Lisa wants to know, do you do this with whole paragraphs or mostly just sentences?
I usually do a couple sentences, actually, back to back. You could do it with just one, like that one that I put up actually was just one sentence. That first sentence, the Lady Maggie Sutton sentence, that's one sentence, but it's a longer one. But that second one that I showed, you know, I did a couple sentences before that because it was really short and I didn't think there'd be enough to talk about. And so I don't think it matters if you do 2 or 3 sentences or you do one. It's just like pick a piece of writing that you think you can get a lot out of. All right, so sorry, my slideshow order is a little off somehow. I don't know what exactly happened there, but what I was going to show actually next was just show that. That's a screenshot of actually doing it in the classroom. And so it's kind of hard to see the red, but that's what we wrote up. And some of the things that you brought up was what we actually talked about. The lady thing, and why is war mentioned? Why is she wrestling things and all that?
Clayton, you've got
Yep.
exactly what happened in your class happening in the chat, where they're adding this book to their to be read list because they're so interested in it. So it serves another purpose by highlighting a book in your classroom library that then you can pass off to a kid that's ready for a new book. And they've already been engaged because of the sentence you talked about. Has that happened for you?
Yeah, well, actually what happened when I put that sentence up, the Lady Maggie sentence, I put it on the board, and as you can see from this, so from this picture of us talking about it, they were right off the bat, they were more interested kind of in the content than they were in the grammar and stuff. With this sentence, I've seen other sentences that I put up that they were more interested in, like the word choice or the way that it was written. But this one, they were just talking about the content right off the bat. And I actually didn't give them, too much information about the story right off the bat. I made them wait, and that made them, they stayed interested the whole time. And then at the end, they were almost begging, like, tell us what it's about. And I finally explained the book, and then, they all wanted to read it. So you can use this to get them interested in a book for sure.
Follow up to that idea. Someone asked, let's see, who was it? Kim asked, if you were doing this in elementary, would you read a picture book and then focus on one or two sentences from the book, or just randomly pick one or two sentences from a novel that they're familiar with?
Yeah, well, you can use it for so many different things. I'll read the kids a short story because we're in 7th grade, so we do short stories, and then use a sentence from that story, and I'll often pick one that either is a really good example of something that I am teaching, or one that is shows a theme that I want to talk about in the story, or one that shows something about the story or the characters, or something that you want to talk about and go into more depth about. So
Clayton, do you feel like we're ready to interview the mentor here? Ask you a couple questions.
Yes.
All right, so I want to go, let's everybody take your mind and move it back to that very first time that he exposed you to this sentence, and he had his annotator out ready to annotate, and you were just sharing the notices and the wonderings that you were having about the sentence. What instructional choices were you making as the conversation evolved, Clayton? This is like behind an actor's studio.
Yeah, well, and it was like, it's a little inauthentic doing it this way. And it's different doing it with adults who are all teachers and stuff like that than it is with the kids. And I didn't ask you things as in the same exact way that I do with them generally. But for instance, things like, bringing up the word choice, and they say, I noticed that they have, a lot of words that sound like she's really tough. And so you have to then question them. I just do a lot of questioning. I don't ever really, I don't give them the answers right away. Like, I keep questioning them and trying to get them to something that we're actually like teaching, like that we can discuss. Like, like how I steered the conversation to talking about action verbs instead of just talking about there are some cool words. Well, what does it mean, cool words? Or what does it mean, tough words? How do we turn that into like something educational?
Yeah, it's that fine balance point between they're really interested in the content, especially in this action-driven sentence, and you're having them kind of look under the hood of that war car of that book and think about how was this constructed to make you interested in one sentence reading you want to read an entire book. Wow, that is a good piece of evidence about how author's craft can move a story. So how do we replicate that and think about it in our own writing? Is there anything else you want to share about the teacher hat moments that you were doing in the background that might not have been transparent?
I don't think so. I don't think I have anything else to share about that.
Okay, so we're going to, okay, let me just mention that in the chat, oh, the link to that won't open. Okay, so in the chat, I'm trying to share this. Give me just a second. I saw you guys taking lots and lots of notes, and we typed out the steps for you, and we have kind of an infographic about them too, so that you don't have to rely on your memory. And probably would have been helpful to share that information earlier, but sometimes taking notes really, really helps you process in the moment. Okay, try that link. That's going to be a view only copy. So you're going to have to make a copy and add it to wherever you want this in your folders. I was going to give you a quick read by Jeff Anderson, which kind of was one of the people other than Harry Noden that kind of pioneered this process. I've had the great privilege at the National Writing Project conference to be able to learn from him and have dinner with him and introduce him. And he wrote Mechanically Inclined as his first book, which is kind of where this process comes from. And then he continued to tinker and think about this idea. If you go to the bottom of that handout that I sent you, there's a pretty little graphic that kind of gives you the steps that are his. And Clayton's look similar, although there's some changes and additions because we always want to make every process our own, and Clayton did that too. This is his version, and this is not a sales pitch, I promise. I'm just in love with the work that he does because I've done it in my classroom too, and it changed the way the transfer happened between daily oral language, which was what I was doing before, this was a while ago, to something that really transferred into their writing. And isn't that the point of language instruction, is so that we can talk about our writing and then use that kind of deep probing and considering of author's craft in transfer into our own writing. And that's what we want for kids too. So he wrote one that has grade 1 through 5. Patterns of Power is what it's called. And then he wrote just now, this came out like this month, Patterns of Power grades 6 through 8. And what he's done for you in this book is he's actually found the sentences for you and made some copyables and given you like the background. So if you're like, I am not a grammar nerd, which some of us wear that title proudly and some of us do not, it helps you think about, once the sentences get pretty complex, what pronoun antecedent, those combinations, things that you might have to like really dig hard back into college or high school even to remember. He helps you with all of that. Okay, so I'm going to cut his article, but know that, Clayton, can you advance me to slide 14? That the article, that if you want to know more about his background process, like why did he move into this, and just want a little bit more research, the article's linked right there, but we're not going to read it because I want to give you some practice. So can you flip to slide 16? All right, So I have created some breakout groups for you, and you are going to have an opportunity to practice all of these things that Clayton just walked us through in small groups. And so Clayton, can you click on sentence number 1? So this is an example of one of the sentences, and I didn't steal any of his work except the sentences. So I didn't have to check out 1,000 picture books and middle grade books and high school books and find my own sentences. I just stole his. He has lessons for them, but we can reconstruct this process and make it our own. So if this is the sentence, the first thing you're going to do, can you make it small so they can see the sticky notes on the sides?
Yep.
So you're going to have to, there you go. Yep. Okay, so we do this quite a lot in our work in the C8 now, but a lot of you have been through our program before it was virtual, and some of you haven't been through our program yet at all. So in order to do this breakout work, I just want to introduce you to the format of how it is all put together. So can you slide left and right to show us where those sticky notes are? So he's going to slide left and right, and you have sticky notes that you'll be able to actually type your notices in right there, and then you'll talk about them. If you want to skip the typing and just talk about it, that's fine too. It's up to your group. The directions are in the speaker notes. So that's where you'll find the directions for each step. Go ahead and go to slide 2. Same thing, you've got the sticky notes on the side, except this is an opportunity for you to label the parts of speech. You're adults, so you're welcome to just talk through that portion, or you're welcome to skip it if you're starting to run low on time. Click to slide, all the directions are in the speaker notes again. Slide 3, now you're gonna imitate, and that is different content, but same structure. We did that, we practiced a little bit. You can practice writing your sentences so you have some space by yourself in the pink stickies. Slide 4. This is an invitation to tinker, and this is where they can really move the structure around and think about how moving the structure impacts the meaning. If you were to change the structure, including punctuation, including maybe a few word choices, and thinking about combining it or breaking a sentence apart that's a complex sentence, how that would change the meaning. That's their invitation to tinker, because what they actually will end up realizing is something along the lines of, oh, this was constructed for a very specific way to make the reader think a very specific thing or to clue them into a very specific thing. And when I mess with it, it can change the meaning. And then slide 5. Okay, so this is an opportunity. We didn't get a chance to do this, but if you want to take this out and think about how would I use this to help me with some ISET prep or maybe some error, noticing errors, you can write four versions of the sentence that have like one confusable for your grade. So for instance, in this grade level, it might be that there's no periods. And so you'd get rid of the periods, and then you'd talk, and then kids would notice that there's no periods and talk about, oh gosh, that really changes the way that I can fluently read the sentence. Same with capitals at this grade. There might not be any commas at this grade. So you're gonna just, make 4 replicas of the sentence, but you're just changing one thing and you're talking about what does this do for the meaning? Okay, I'm gonna let you guys do all of that in breakout rooms, and let me check the time. Did we get done at 9:15, Carrie? I think that's about right. I'm going to give you 10 minutes in your breakout rooms. I tried to pick sentences that were kind of close to your grade level and people that were close. There should be about 4 people in your breakout room. And if you have any trouble either getting there, you might have to click join. It might pop up on your screen. You might have to click join. If you have any trouble getting there, we'll help. And if you have any trouble in the room, raise your hand. We'll be able to see that and we'll pop in to help you. And Carrie, we'll put you in a room here in a minute, okay? Anybody have any questions about what you're doing? Andrea, do you have questions? Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I was typing it, but I figured it'd be easier just to ask. Can you remind us again, when we are in the material sessions, what slideshow do we use? I see 15 different ones.
I'm going to, oh, thank you. Gosh. When you see your breakout room, it should tell you sentence 5, sentence 8 at the top of the breakout room. I think that's the case. And then you'll click on that related sentence. So that should come up as the header for you. If not, I'll pop around and help you. Okay. And then you'll click on that and then you'll all be able to edit that PowerPoint, that slide. Thanks. Good logistics question. Anybody else? All right, off you go. You won't get a chance to do everything, but you will get a chance to really think about what this feels like from a designer point of view. Okay, Carrie, I couldn't place you. I don't know why.
Yeah, we've had some boxes going here for some reason. Brandon said that, I don't know, it's live streaming or what, but it won't let me join
Okay.
a session.
Hey, you don't have a group. Tell me what grade you have. Can you unmute?
Sorry, I actually accidentally got logged out just a moment ago, so I'll just rename 9 through 12.
Okay, let me find my 9 through 12 people that are probably missing you. I want you to go to sentence 9, and I'm going to put you in that room right now.
Okay.
See you soon.
I'm gonna try to see if I can just join a group.
Yeah.
See if I can do that.
Then the camera will follow her, Clayton. That's why we're thinking about this, so that so whoever's watching later can see what happens in a breakout room.
Okay. Okay.
That's why that mattered.
Right.
Yeah. How are you feeling?
I'm okay. I mean, I don't think I covered everything that I was going to, and I kind of I was a little nervous and didn't say everything perfect, but I think it was okay.
That was the point. It's an authentic demo. Well, as authentic as we can be, considering that the tools have to be digital, which is different.
Well, and I'm having some technical issues, and I'm trying to I was trying to work with it because not being able to see everybody's face made it so I couldn't really tell who was ready to talk or who was, so luckily people just kind of, when they started talking, they popped up and I could see who was talking, but that made it difficult. And it's a little difficult. It's more difficult doing it with adults. It really is, because I was trying to figure out I wanted to try to talk to them like they were students, but at the same time, they seemed like they wanted to talk about it like teachers. And so I tried to go with how they were wanting to interact with it.
That was a smooth move. And because you picked the sentence, that really worked. If you would have picked a more elementary sentence, that would have been a lot harder. So because the sentence inherently was active and interesting and got us all kind of up on our toes because it had a lot of assumptions in it,
right?
Or we could make a lot of inferences, then yeah, I saw you make that change on the fly and it seemed like it worked really well. You also had some people that were ready to just jump forward and say, oh, I'll help, which feels really nice.
Yeah. Andrea helped out.
I don't know if you could see them, but they were taking notes, lots of them.
Okay, good.
I mean, they're down here, or they were typing. And so that's a pretty good indicator that they were, engaged and really thinking about how to transfer this into their own classrooms, and hopefully seeing a sentence that is close to a grade level from a book that I tried to pick books they were pretty familiar with. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah. No, that sounds great. The other thing that I'm having an issue with was I couldn't find the chat.
It disappeared.
For some reason, with the way that I have this set up right now, I don't see where the chat is. I've been looking for where's the button to unhide the chat and to get to the chat, and I couldn't find it. So I had to just.
Did it just pop up?
Did it?
Did it?
Oh yeah, it did. Yep.
That's a trick that we learned that I should have clued you into. So Carrie was really minding the chat. I asked her to do that in the background, and then we were verbally bringing it to you.
Yeah, that helped. That helped.
For some, do you have two screens going?
I just have one screen, unfortunately, with this laptop.
Okay, because we thought it might be a two-screen problem. This is something
Yeah.
new to Zoom. It used to be that the chat would just always be on top. If you click chat, it would just pop up on front of everything. And in
Right.
their latest update, it's gone. And I used to be able to control tab to find it. That doesn't work now either. So
Right,
the
okay.
workaround is we have somebody send us a private message just with the word hi. And then that forces the program to say, oh, I'm going to put that up front because she needs to know that. Not perfect. Definitely a technology issue. But not you.
So
You're not crazy.
so it's a Zoom issue.
It's a Zoom issue. You're not crazy.
Okay.
Yeah. We just solved
I'm gonna
that.
pause and hit the bathroom here real quick. I'll be right back.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Sheesh, that wasn't enough time, was it? Clayton, if you'll stop sharing your screen, I'd be glad to share mine.
Hey, Jill, just
Yeah.
a quick comment. If you're going to put us in breakout rooms again,
Uh-huh.
leave me and my computer and one breakout group in the main group, in this group. So then the recording will keep going.
Oh, did the recording stop completely?
Yeah, for some reason, when I joined the breakout room, it just quit recording. It's still recording now. And maybe the live streaming is recording, but I couldn't see it. So just leave me in one group in this main room.
Okay. I think we only have 4 minutes left of this session. It just flew past. Yeah? Am I correct? Time zones, they're tricky. Maybe you guys are 30 seconds earlier or something. I know that those breakout rooms weren't enough time, but you do have the template to take a look at. Plus you have all the other sentences that you can peek at as well. And I have them organized by grade level there, but that is not necessarily the case. That was just so that I can make easy breakout rooms. You have to start wherever your kids are at as writers as this, if you want it to transfer into writing. And so if they need to go back to a book, a sentence from a picture book, that's completely okay. And they'll love it because they can take some author's craft ideas from that. Often our picture books are the most creative when it comes to punctuation and when it comes to formatting, because they've got that big page that they can move things around and it becomes kind of like a shape poem, and where the text and where it's placed really indicates meaning to younger readers. So we're going to go ahead and close with some reflection. I see somebody in the chat. Oh, good. I'm glad you guys are having great conversations. Go ahead and think about, what are you going to stop doing based on what you have seen here? What are you going to continue doing, do a little more of, dig a little deeper into? And what are you going to start doing based on your understanding of adventure sentences? I'm going to go ahead and capture that in your writer's place, whether that's your notebook or the conference organizer. And then I would love for you to spend some time helping us connect to practice. We actually have 5 minutes. We go till 9:20 and then, or 10:20, and then there's a break until 10:30. So let's take a little bit of time right now to think about maybe what happened in your breakout room. You can share that and be transparent about what you learned there, what you learned from the demo, and what you're really tinkering with and thinking about as you consider transferring this into your classroom.
I just had a question, like that, the template, the sentences that we looked in the slides and everything, would we have access to something like that? Because I don't even have a clue on how to begin making something like that, like to share on the screen.
Yeah, this will all be available to you to make copies of and play with however you like. You can go really low tech if you're back face to face with kids, where you just put it on the board and have them write it in their notebooks. It can be sentences that are from books that they love and that they're familiar with, or books that you're trying to get into their hands, like Clayton just did. But yeah, all of this will be available to you. You'll just have to make a copy of it and put it on your drive. You can find that by going to register my conference, and there is a folder associated with Clayton's Adventure Sentences workshop, and you click that and you'll get all the materials. You can also reach out to any of the Idaho Coaching Network coaches and we'll send it to you if you are having trouble finding it or accessing it. What other things are we thinking about?
Hi, so I actually own the Power of Patterns book, and my colleague had gotten it for us a year ago, and we tried to do this and it was not very good. And so I wanted to take this class just to see how it was working and how, to do it. And so that was super helpful to see Clayton do it and have us all work through it, because I was like, I don't know how to structure this through my day, even though the book is really good and it gives you all that stuff. I was trying to read it and I couldn't figure out why I was reading it. So watching someone, I'm more of a visual learner, watching someone do it was very helpful for me. And I'm excited for getting it started in my classroom this year.
Oh yeah, Stacy, I couldn't imagine just taking the book without some sort of visual to see, like, what are the questions that pull us forward when kids get stuck or stopped, and how do I take what they're saying and add academic language to it, so that we're talking about craft, but we're also talking about the skills of language and identifying things like parts of speech and author's choices. So yeah, thanks for that feedback, because the book is supposed to stand alone, but it doesn't without a clear understanding of that interaction we saw with Clayton. Thank you. I can't wait to hear how you give it another choice and tinker with it a little bit and see what happens next. What else?
I had a quick question. So Clayton, do you do this in just a one day, or do you take each of these steps over a couple of days?
I've been doing it as like a session, like 1 day a week. So it takes generally about, anywhere, it depends on how much they have to talk about, but it can take like 15 minutes to 30 minutes, depending.
Elementary school teachers, you could do one chunk per day, just like you do with math strings, and you could have them come back to the same sentence and do something different with it every day for 5 minutes, because we know attention span looks different in the younger grades.
I agree with Stacy 100% on trying to just implement it from the book. I was out of the classroom for 2 years, and when I came back, I was like, yes, I'm going to do this, and got into it, read the book, and did the first, got beyond nouns, and I'm like, I feel like I'm sinking and I have nobody to go to. So Clayton, thank you. You did an excellent job with your presentation and filling in gaps and questions that I was wondering about, of how to tweak and do with my third graders, and if it was okay to do it that way, because it's not following it right out of the textbook. So thank you very much for helping me with my third graders.
I'll visit, Annie. I'll come up and demo with your third graders. I'm just looking for an excuse to see my coach friend, Annie. What else?
I just want to go back to maybe one of the questions that Clayton presented at the beginning, which was how to make grammar stick. And I think that over time, with trying to instruct grammar to students, to remind them that, or remind ourselves that there's this cognitive development component to making grammar stick, because the language we use to talk about language is so abstract, where students can
naturally write grammatically correct, but being able to use the language to talk about how to write grammatically correct may not come for several years. Like grammar for me did not stick until I was like 24. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I get it. And I wasn't even teaching at that point. So that reassurance to students that it could take several years to finally click.
And quite honestly, language is a language that's made up to talk about writing. It doesn't exist on its own, or to talk about the difference between how you learn Spanish and how you learn English, like so that you can really think about where those parts of speech fit in. But it's just like math, where we have all of these words like fraction and integer in order to talk about math, but it's really just helping us think about how numbers behave. Yeah, so it does stick in this way, and it's just that repetitiveness where we just keep talking about it like you do with academic language, and pretty soon your kids are using it and you're like, yes, because they want to talk about their craft. Okay, our session has come to an end. I cannot wait to think with you if you would like. I will update the slideshow to have my contact information at the very end, and then also take pictures of the 2 books that are helpful, the 3 books, and make sure that that's there at the very end of this for you, so you have all those resources. And you have until 9 or 10:30 to get into your next session, which, reminder, that means you need to go back to your program and click a new link. Let's give Clayton some snaps or some claps.
Hey.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thanks for sharing, Clayton.
See you soon, Andrea. She's next.
Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you for joining us on your Saturday.
Bye, Carrie and Jill. See you later.
Oh, so good to see you, Annie. Oh my gosh, what a treat.
We need to just have a whole group Jill.
Priest Lake in July. I promise I'll call you.
And Amy's coming up in June. She's coming to Hills to stay for their anniversary.
Oh,
okay.
So I'll get to see both of you.
Sweet.
Yay.
Carrie, you just need to come up north.
Yes, I do. Yes. 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 That's on my list.
Good.
Good.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thanks again, Clayton. Awesome job.
Thank you. I appreciate your help with the slideshow and all that stuff too in the chat.
Well, that's why it's nice having an extra person. It's hard focusing on what you're presenting and sharing to follow along the chat. So.
Right, and I was having some technical. There's some technical issues that I was having that I was talking to Jill about. Like I couldn't find the chat and stuff like that because it wasn't obvious. So thank you.
Yeah. I've got to hop over to Andrea now. If you want to debrief later, we can do that. Clayton, maybe on Monday, so you have some time to really think about it.
Yeah.